Welcome back to the Brahmin Word, and we are continuing on with the life of Abram or Abraham, and we're getting close to when his name changes to Abraham. But today we are looking at the continuation uh, of his relationship with his nephew, and Lot has decided to go to the valley and to the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, which of course we know where that leads eventually. But first, it actually leads to a little bit of a military conflict that Abram actually decides to get involved with to save Lot's life. So, turn with me Genesis chapter 14. Genesis chapter 14, verse 1. There are some really interesting names in this passage, so I will do my best. I will do my best to pronounce these as correctly as I can. All right, so chapter 14, verse 1. In the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim. These kings made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is, Zoar. And all these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is, the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Suzim and Ham, the Emim and Shavah, Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and defeated all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who were dwelling in Hazazon Tamar. So you have this. You have these two sides. You have Chedorlaomer, it's kind of the big king on one side, with Amraphel, the king of Shinar, Arioch, the king of Elasar, and Tidal, the king of Goim, and they are facing off against Sodom and Gomorrah with their kings Bera and Bersha, respectively, along with Shinab, the king of Admah, Shemeber, the king of Zeboim, and then the king of Bela. We're not given his name, but that is Bela is also another name for Zoar. So you have these two sides going against each other, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, Abram's name isn't there. Why should I care? Well, because of Genesis chapter 13. Because Lot went to or towards Sodom and Gomorrah, this war that's taking place in chapter 14, verses 1 through 7, is very much a a threat to Lot, and it will become a very big threat to Lot here in a second. But it becomes a very big problem for Lot, and which should probably give him some cause of, well, maybe I didn't pick right. But we'll get to that later with Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So but you have this setup, and again, yes, Abram's name is there, but Lot's name, or his name is about to be there, and but more importantly, the context of chapter 3 makes you think, oh wait, he was headed to Sodom and Gomorrah, so therefore, even though Lot's name and Abram's name aren't in verses 1 through 7, you already connect Lot with this war because of chapter 13, and you're thinking, this can't be good for Lot. And you're right. Verse 8. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out, and they joined battle in the valley of Siddim with Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goim, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. And I think that's important to see here is that you have the 4 of on the one side and then 5 on the other. So just by sheer numbers, you would think that the side that Lot is on, which is the 5 kings, would probably have an edge. Maybe not a huge edge, but it would be an edge. You would think that, right? But that's not the case. Verse 10. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, and the rest fled to the hill country. And I think this is really quite fascinating here. It is the four kings understanding that they're probably at a disadvantage. Maybe not. It's possible that they might have more in numbers, but they use their geography and the valley of Siddim to their advantage, and doing so, they fall into these pits, and it causes chaos basically. And with that, it's pretty easy to take over a force, even if it's five kings against your four. It makes it a little bit easier. Verse 11. So the enemy, or the four kings, took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom, and his belongings, and went their way. So this is where it kind of shifts. So the four kings think that they have gone away with this incredible conquest, which they have for a time until verse 12, and it says they also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom, and his possessions, and went their way. They continue to think that they've gone away with it, but the problem is that they have gotten Abram involved now, not directly, but indirectly through the taking of his nephew, basically. So, verse 13. The one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, who was living by the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and of Aner. These were allies of Abram. Then, when Abram heard that his kinsman, or Lot, had been taken captive, he led forth his trained men born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. So Abram finds out the Lot has been taken. Kind of like, oh my, all right, well, and this kind of in chapters 12 in chapter 12 and then a little bit in chapter 13, we see Abram as the overseer of Lot because his brother has died. Well, that feeling of protection has come back up to the surface for Abram. And he's thinking, all right, well, we have to go and save my nephew. But he does have friends in this fight. But he does have trained men as well. So there's 318 trained men. And for me, it's kind of a predecessor to Gideon and the 300 men. I mean, against four kings and their armies. 318? Are you kidding me? That's all you could do. Well, then it seems like we know how this is going to end, but that's the point. And not only that, but he makes it even crazier by dividing his forces. Look at this, verse 15. And he, Abram, divided his forces, the 318, against the five kings by night, he and his servants, and defeated them and pursued them to Hobah, north of Damascus. Then he brought back all the possessions, and also brought back his kinsman Lot with his possessions, and the women, and the people. So not only does Abram win this fight, but he actually splits the 318 in half. My guess is probably in half, but he splits them, making the 318 even less on each side, but he does so in a tactical way that brings him the advantage against these five kings. And not only does he defeat them, but he gets them out of the region completely to Hobah, north of Damascus. So they are out of the region. But not only that, but then he saves a bunch of people, including his nephew, but then also brings back all the possessions, not just Lot's possessions, but all of the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah that was lost within this war in verses um, in verses 1 through 7. Uh, well, in verses 1 through 7, and then in 1 through 10, really, I guess is 1 through, well, all right, 1 through 12. Let's say that 1 through 12. All those possessions that have been lost in this fight, Abram brings back, and it's just this kind of crazy, just war, just you would think story, but yet it is true, and it's on the back of Abram's faith. Now, we don't necessarily see here Abram taking a chance. Um, we don't see him necessarily getting on his hands and knees and praying to the Lord, I'm about to go into this war. But he doesn't hesitate either. He doesn't hesitate to go and save his nephew, even though in chapter 13, his nephew has his own thing, his own territory. So really, Abram would have been justified by just being like, no, this is your own thing. You have to fight your own battles. Um, yes, but he loves his family. And so he goes out, and with this, the Lord goes before him. Uh, I I clearly believe that the Lord goes before Abram and defeats these 5 kings. Even though Abram has 318, and then divides those 318 to basically make the uh, the forces look even smaller, but it does the trick. There's probably guerrilla style warfare there, but it's an interesting thing that Abram has done. But what's interesting about this fight is what happens immediately afterwards. It is this introduction of this individual called Melchizedek, which is a mystery upon mysteries, and that is where we are going next week. The mystery of Melchizedek we will be looking at next week. So, but thanks for spending time with me today as we look at this kind of crazy war that Abram gets thrown into, but yet he does not hesitate. The Lord goes before him and gets him victory in pretty crazy odds. So thanks for spending time with me in Genesis chapter 14 today, and I will see you with the mystery of Melchizedek next week. But I will see you with the Brahmin word as well, of course, tomorrow as well. Thanks.